I'm Dean, 32 years old, and I used to think being the good son would eventually pay off. You know the type, quiet, reliable, the one who picks up every late-night call, wires money without asking questions, and shows up to every family gathering with a smile, even when your stomach's in knots. That was me for most of my adult life. Not because I thought I'd get something back. I genuinely believe that if you treat your family right, they'll treat you the same. I thought love was reciprocal. Turns out, I was a walking wallet with a pulse. My mom, Janet, raised us alone after my dad dipped out when I was 8. She worked 2 jobs and carried herself like a hero. I'll admit, she was tough, but I admired her strength growing up. The older I got, the more I wanted to repay her. So I worked hard, stayed out of trouble, got a tech degree, built my own freelance business, and eventually scaled it into something that paid well, really well. By 27, I was making 6 figures. By 30, I had my own company with 2 full-time employees and a pipeline of clients that didn't stop. I was living comfortably, and I didn't hesitate for a second when I had the chance to give back. The first big thing I did was buy her a house. Nothing fancy, just a cute 3-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood with a big backyard for her dog, Jasmine. I paid it off in cash. No mortgage, no debt. I handed her the keys and told her she never had to worry about rent again. She cried in that moment, told me I was her angel, her rock, and I believed her. A year later, I officially retired her, told her to quit her job and just relax. She was 59, her knees were shot from years of standing on concrete floors, and she hated every second of her retail job. So I made sure all her bills were paid on time. Utilities, car insurance, groceries, even her health insurance. Every single month, I deposited money into her account and never missed. I even got her on a new phone plan and added her to my family Netflix, Spotify, and Amazon Prime accounts. I thought that was love in action. That's what family does, right? Then there's my brother, Kyle. He's 2 years younger than me and the complete opposite. Dropped out of community college after 2 semesters. Never held a job longer than 6 months. Lived with mom well into his late 20s, sleeping until noon, gaming all night, racking up speeding tickets and overdraft fees. Somehow, no matter what mess he made, mom would swoop in and fix it. She co-signed his car. She paid off his credit card debt, just this once, at least 5 times. And when I gently tried to ask why he never had to face consequences, she always gave the same answer. He's just going through a phase. He'll grow out of it. That phase, by the way, is still happening at age 30. He's never left home. He's still living off her credit card. Still doesn't work. Still has excuses. But mom insists he's finding himself and that I should stop comparing him to myself. As if that was ever the point. The thing is, I never said anything. Not really. I kept showing up. I kept paying the bills. I kept being the good son. Because I didn't want to be petty or jealous. I just wanted peace. But deep down, I think I always hoped she'd eventually see the difference. That one day she'd pull me aside and say, "Dean, thank you for everything. I'm proud of you." That day never came. Instead, a few weeks ago, we had a big family cookout at her place. I'd organized the whole thing, paid for the catering, bought the new patio furniture she said she wanted, even hired a guy to come mow and edge the lawn that morning so everything looked nice. Everyone came. Aunts, uncles, cousins, a few of Kyle's friends who conveniently showed up just in time to eat. I didn't mind. I was in a good mood, just happy to see everyone together. At one point, I was standing on the deck with a beer, chatting with my cousin Laura, when I heard my name being called from the backyard. I turned and saw my mom standing by the grill, laughing with a group of relatives. "Dean gives us nothing but headaches," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I wish he was more like Kyle. For a second, I thought I'd misheard. But then she said it again, shaking her head like I was some burden she'd been dragging behind her. Kyle never complains. He just goes with the flow. Dean always has to make everything so serious. There was this pause, like the entire backyard took a collective breath, and then everyone laughed. Even Kyle, who was leaning against the fence, arms crossed like he was soaking it in. I don't know how to describe what I felt. Embarrassment? Sure, but mostly just hollow. Like something cracked open inside me, and everything spilled out at once. All those years of late-night transfers, canceled vacations, stress migraines from overworking to make sure she was okay, just erased with one careless comment and a chuckle. I didn't say anything in that moment. I smiled, took a sip of my beer, and walked back inside the house. I needed a second. Maybe more than a second. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the fridge, listening to the laughter from outside grow louder. And for the first time in my life, I asked myself something I never had before. What am I actually doing this for? Not long after, Kyle came in to grab another plate. He didn't even look at me, just muttered, "Man, you really pissed her off last week when you told her not to use your credit card for Amazon. Maybe just let her buy what she wants." That's when I knew it wasn't a misunderstanding. That crack in my chest, it split wide open. And that was the moment, right then, when something in me shifted. I didn't yell. I didn't storm out. I didn't cry. But in that instant, I decided, I'm done. And if she thought I gave her nothing but headaches, well, I was about to show her what it really looked like when I stopped giving anything at all. Let's just say, the fallout was louder than I expected. And it ended with blue lights flashing in her driveway. I didn't leave the cookout right away. I probably should have. I should have packed up my pride, driven home, and let the silence speak louder than anything I could say. But I didn't. I stood in that kitchen for a long time, staring out the window over the sink, watching my mom toss paper plates into a trash bag while laughing with Kyle like nothing had happened. Like I wasn't even there. I kept hearing her words on repeat. "You give us nothing but headaches. I wish you were more like your brother." Each time they echoed in my head, they took on a new shape. At first, I thought it was just a bad joke. Then I thought maybe she was trying to impress the relatives, exaggerating like she sometimes did. But no matter how I tried to reframe it, it kept boiling down to the same ugly truth. She meant it. That wasn't a one-off comment. That was what she believed. After a few minutes, my cousin Laura came in, concern etched all over her face. "Dean, you okay?" she asked quietly. I don't think she meant it like that. I forced a smile. "Yeah, I'm fine." But I wasn't. Not even close. I stayed until the end of the party. I helped clean up, took down the folding tables, bagged the trash, and even loaded leftovers into Tupperware like a good little helper. I didn't say a word about what happened. Not to my mom. Not to Kyle. Not to anyone. Because at that point, I wasn't angry. I was stunned. Stunned at how easily years of sacrifice could be erased with one sentence. Stunned that no one, not even Kyle, had stepped in to say, "Hey, that's not fair." I realized in that moment that no one ever would. 3 days passed. I didn't call. I didn't text. I didn't send her the usual money transfer on the first of the month. I figured she'd reach out, ask if something was wrong, maybe even apologize. But no. On the 4th day, she messaged me a single line. "Did the bank mess up the deposit?" No hi. No hope you're okay. Just an expectation. That's what I was to her now. A standing order. A human auto-pay system. And when the money didn't arrive on schedule, she acted like it was a glitch. Like I was the problem. I stared at that message for a long time before responding. I typed out a dozen drafts, each more bitter than the last. In the end, I just wrote, "No deposit this month. We need to talk first." She didn't reply. A full day passed. Then 2. On the 3rd day, Kyle called me, which was rare. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity got the better of me. "What's your deal, man?" he asked, his voice already defensive. "Mom's been freaking out because you're punishing her or something. You can't just pull stuff like that out of nowhere." "I'm not punishing her," I said calmly. "I just want a conversation. A real one." Kyle scoffed. "You're overreacting." She was joking at the party. Everyone laughed. It wasn't that deep. It was deep enough for her to say it twice, I replied. In front of everyone. "You're being sensitive." That word, sensitive, hit a nerve. It always did. It's the word people use when they want to dismiss your pain without taking any responsibility for it. And Kyle knew exactly what he was doing. "You know what, Kyle?" I said slowly. "Tell Mom I'm happy to talk whenever she's ready to be honest. Until then, I'm stepping back." And I hung up. That was the first boundary I'd ever drawn with them. And it felt unfamiliar. Not empowering. Not yet. Just foreign. Like wearing someone else's jacket. I wasn't used to saying no. I was used to fixing things. To smoothing over tension. But something had changed. Something I couldn't unfeel. A week passed. Then 2. Still nothing. No calls. No texts. No apology. Just silence. Then, out of nowhere, my mom's car insurance company called me. They said the automatic payment had been declined. Apparently, she'd given them my card number years ago, and I never took it off file. It had been so long, I forgot it was even linked. That's how many things I'd been covering. The rep asked if I wanted to update the card. I said no. I told them to take it off file permanently. The next day, I got a furious voicemail from my mom. Not concern, not regret. Fury. I just got a notice saying my insurance got canceled. What are you doing? Are you trying to ruin me? After everything I've done for you? I can't believe this. You're acting like a child. That was the moment the switch flipped. I played her message back 3 times just to make sure I wasn't imagining it. No mention of the party. No mention of what she'd said. Just outrage that the perks were disappearing. That the free ride had a bump in the road. I finally replied with a single text. If I'm nothing but a headache to you, I'll stop being one. From now on, take care of your own bills. She didn't respond. But Kyle did. He texted me that night in full-on attack mode. Paragraphs of accusations. Saying I was abandoning mom. That I was selfish. That I only ever helped her to feel superior. That she cried all day because of me. That I was taking away her stability just to prove a point. And maybe part of that last line was true. Maybe I was trying to prove a point. But it wasn't about revenge. Not yet. It was about clarity. I wanted them to feel what it was like when the support system they took for granted stopped being automatic. When the person they ignored started acting like he mattered. That clarity didn't sit well with them. I started getting calls from extended family. Aunts, uncles, even people I barely spoke to. All of them saying I was hurting mom. That she was worried sick. That she couldn't sleep. That she was just trying her best and didn't deserve this kind of treatment from her golden child. Golden child. That was a laugh. If they only knew. It all came to a head about a month later. I stopped by the house to pick up some of my old things, boxes I'd left in the attic years ago. I didn't want to go inside, but part of me needed closure. I knocked. No answer. So I used my spare key. I figured she might be out. What I found when I walked and made my heart sink. The house was a mess. Dishes piled in the sink. Trash overflowing. The fridge nearly empty. It looked like no one had cleaned in weeks. I walked through the living room and saw Kyle passed out on the couch, controller in hand, with a dozen Red Bull cans around him. He woke up when I opened the attic door. Yo, what are you doing here? He mumbled. Getting my stuff. He sat up, rubbing his eyes. You can't just come in like that. It's my house, I said flatly. He froze for a second. You gave it to mom. No, I bought it for her. That's not the same thing. He glared at me. You're really pulling that now? After all these years? I'm not pulling anything. I'm taking my boxes and leaving. As I hauled the first one down the stairs, I heard him mutter, "This is why nobody likes you." I stopped mid-step. What did you just say? He stood up, arms crossed. You think you're better than everyone just because you have money. You're not. You're a control freak. That's all you've ever been. I felt my chest tighten. You've been living here for free. Eating food I bought. Gaming all day while mom covers your mistakes. And I'm the problem. She loves me because I don't throw it in her face. I laughed bitterly. You mean she loves you because you do nothing? Because you never challenge her? Because you let her believe her lies? He stepped closer, face flushing. Get out. I didn't move. Tell her I came for my stuff. Tell her I'm done being her safety net. She's on her own now. He shoved past me and slammed the front door behind me. I didn't look back. But 2 days later, something happened that changed everything. I got a fraud alert on one of my credit cards. Hundreds of dollars in Amazon purchases I didn't make. When I checked the shipping address, it was hers. Not Kyle's. Not some hacker. My mom used my card again. Even after everything. After the fight. After the messages. After the silence. She dug up an old card number, one I hadn't used in years, and used it without asking. That's when the betrayal hit home. This wasn't just disrespect. This was theft. And it came from the one person I'd bent over backwards to help. The one person I thought I could trust. The one person who had the nerve to say I gave her nothing but headaches. That was the moment the gears started turning in my head. Because if she wanted to act like none of it mattered, then I was going to show her exactly how much it did. And I was going to start by taking back everything I gave her. But I had no idea just how far she'd go to stop me. Not yet. Not until the screaming started. And the neighbors called the cops. It's strange how betrayal doesn't always hit you like a punch. Sometimes it settles in slow, like fog filling a room, until you can't see what's in front of you anymore. That's how it felt, standing in my apartment with the fraud alert still blinking on my phone, staring at the shipping address. My mom's name. My mom's street. My mom's house. The house I bought. The house I paid for. She didn't even try to hide it. No apology. No warning. Just a quiet little heist right out of my wallet. And here's the part that really got me. She must have known I'd find out. Cards get flagged. Statements get reviewed. Addresses get traced. There's no way she thought she'd get away with it forever. But that wasn't the point. The point was that she didn't care. That was the moment I stopped trying to fix things. That was the moment I hit rock bottom. Because no matter how much I'd convinced myself over the years that my sacrifices were worth it, they weren't. Not to her. Not to Kyle. Probably not to half the family, who still thought I was acting out because I dared to draw a line. I canceled the card, reported the charges, filed a claim. The bank refunded most of it, but something inside me stayed broken. The next few weeks were rough. I'll be honest about that. I stopped sleeping, stopped eating right. My work slipped. I started missing deadlines, something I never did. My employees covered for me the best they could, but I could tell they were confused. I wasn't present. Not in meetings, not in emails, not in my own head. I'd sit at my desk and just stare. Not at anything in particular. Just trying to understand how things got this bad. Because it wasn't just about the money, or the card, or even the cookout. It was about being invisible. I'd spent so long trying to earn love that I didn't realize how transactional it had become. And when the transaction stopped, so did the love. That realization cut deeper than anything else. For a while, I spiraled. I didn't go out, didn't return texts, ignored calls. My apartment turned into a disaster zone. Empty takeout containers, laundry piling up, unopened mail stacked on the counter. I'd always thought of myself as the put-together one, the stable one, the one who didn't let things fall apart. But now, I was wrecked, and still not one call from Mom. Not even a fake, "How are you?" Just silence. Kyle texted me once during that time. Just one sentence. "You happy now?" I blocked his number. Eventually, my assistant, Claire, pulled me aside during a Zoom meeting. "Dean," she said gently, "do you want me to reschedule this week's clients?" I blinked at her. "What? No. What? You haven't sent over the edits for the Montgomery pitch. And you missed the strategy call yesterday." I looked at the calendar. She was right. I hadn't even noticed. Claire hesitated, then added, "You don't have to tell me what's going on. But if you need time, take it. We'll manage." That kindness almost broke me. After the call, I shut my laptop and sat in silence. Then I got up, grabbed the trash, and started cleaning. Slowly, like my body was waking up from a coma. I did the dishes, took out the recycling, ran a load of laundry. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Later that night, I went for a walk. It was cold, the kind of cold that stings your cheeks and clears your head. I left my phone at home. No music, no distractions. Just me, my breath in the air, and the sound of my shoes on the pavement. That walk turned into a habit. Every night, I walked a little further, thought a little clearer. And somewhere in the middle of all that movement, something started to shift. I began writing again, not for work, not for clients, but for myself. Nothing fancy, just a notebook and a pen. I wrote everything I was feeling. The betrayal, the anger, the years I lost trying to be enough. And as I wrote, I started to see patterns I hadn't noticed before. I saw how I'd made myself small to keep the peace. How I'd tolerated insults disguised as jokes. How I'd convinced myself that giving endlessly would eventually buy me respect. And worst of all, how I'd never asked for anything in return, not even basic decency. That realization hit me like a freight train. I wasn't just hurt. I was complicit. I let it happen. I trained them to treat me this way. But now I was done. The rise didn't happen overnight. It never does. But it did happen. The first real step came when I decided to separate emotionally and legally from my mother. I met with a lawyer, someone who specialized in property law and family disputes. I laid everything out on the table. The house, the bills, the fraudulent charges. She listened quietly, then said, "You've got more control than you think." I learned that while I'd gifted the house in practice, the deed was still under my name. I'd never transferred ownership. Part of me had always wanted to, but something held me back. Call it instinct. The lawyer raised an eyebrow. "That's good. Because if you want to remove someone from the premises, you can. You're the legal owner." That sparked something. I didn't move on it right away, but the seed was planted. In the meantime, I focused on rebuilding my business, reconnecting with old clients, delegating better, creating structure. Claire was a godsend. She handled more than I ever realized. With her help, I restructured our contracts, raised our rates, and brought on 2 new freelancers to lighten the load. Money started flowing again. Not just flowing, growing. And for the first time, I started spending it on me. I booked a weekend trip to the mountains. Stayed in a quiet cabin. No Wi-Fi. Just books, coffee, and a fireplace. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just went. And it felt like exhaling after years of holding my breath. Back home, I started therapy. I found a guy named Alan. Older, calm, the kind of voice that could talk you off a ledge without raising a decibel. He helped me unpack the emotional knots I tied myself into. The guilt, the people-pleasing, the fear of being unloved if I ever said no. One day, during a session, he asked, "What do you think love looks like?" I didn't know how to answer. So he asked again, what would it look like if it wasn't transactional? I sat in silence for a long time. Eventually, I said safe. I think it would feel safe. That answer stayed with me. And it made me realize that what I'd been chasing with my mom and Kyle wasn't love. It was validation. And that's not the same thing. So I stopped chasing. I didn't tell them about the therapy, or the legal consult, or the business wins. I didn't post anything, didn't call, didn't rub it in. Because this part of my life, it was mine. And for once, it didn't revolve around trying to win anyone over. Then, one morning, weeks after that fraudulent charge, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Just my name, scrawled in handwriting I recognized immediately. It was a letter from my mom. For pages. Handwritten. It started with, "I don't know why you're doing this to me." Not "I'm sorry." Not "I miss you." Just blame. The letter went on to say that she was struggling. That the house needed repairs. That Kyle had been doing his best, but things were falling apart. That she felt abandoned. That she never thought I would be the one to turn my back on family. At the bottom, she wrote, "I gave you life. The least you could do is make it easier for me to live it." That sentence, it stuck with me for days. Not because it was true, but because it revealed everything. She didn't see me as a person. She saw me as a utility. And that was the final confirmation I needed. I folded the letter, tucked it into a folder, and placed it in my desk drawer. I wasn't going to rage, or scream, or throw things. No, I was going to do the one thing that scared them the most. I was going to take back control. And I already knew exactly how I was going to start. By visiting my house. And serving an official notice. But before I could do that, something happened that shook everything loose. Something that took the entire situation from a quiet family drama to an explosive, public disaster. And it started with a call from a neighbor. A woman named Trish. I hadn't heard from her in over a year. But her message? It chilled me to the bone. "Dean, I don't know how to say this, but the cops are at your house." When I saw Trish's name flash on my phone, I almost didn't answer. She was my mom's next-door neighbor, the kind that always noticed when someone parked a little too close to the curb or let their grass grow half an inch too long. But she was nice to me. Always had been. She used to bring over pies during the holidays, back when I still visited. She even gave me a thank you card the week I surprised my mom with the house, saying it was so nice to see someone taking care of their mama. So when I picked up and heard her say, "Dean, the cops are at your house," I froze. "What happened?" I asked, heart already pounding. "I'm not sure. They pulled up about 10 minutes ago. Loud knocking. Flashlights in the windows. Looked like they were trying to talk to your brother. He wouldn't open the door at first." My mouth went dry. Did someone call them? I don't know. I didn't. But something's going on. And, listen, I probably shouldn't say this, but Kyle's been having some real sketchy people over lately. Lots of noise at night. Arguing. I've seen cars I've never seen before, staying just 10, 15 minutes. In and out. That stopped me cold. I hadn't set foot near that house in almost 2 months. I hadn't even driven past it. I'd emotionally detached myself so hard, it almost didn't feel like mine anymore. But now, with police standing on my porch, it suddenly was my house again. In every legal sense. "I appreciate the call, Trish," I said. "I'll handle it." I hung up and just sat there. That was the moment everything crystallized. The years of quiet tolerance. The slow unraveling. The way my generosity had been twisted, abused, and weaponized against me. All of it came into focus, sharp and bitter like cold wind across an open wound. And I knew, right then, that the time for hesitation was over. I wasn't going to ask nicely anymore. I wasn't going to wait for them to find their conscience. I was going to take everything back. And this time, I was going to do it my way. That night, I drove over. It was almost midnight by the time I pulled up down the street from the house. I didn't want to be seen, not yet. I sat in my car for a few minutes, engine off, just watching. The house looked dark. Only the faint flicker of a TV screen lit the living room window. I didn't approach. I wasn't there to start a fight. I was there to gather information. And sure enough, even in the silence, things didn't feel right. There was a strange car parked in the driveway. Not Kyle's. Not Mom's. Some beat-up sedan with tinted windows and a missing hubcap. I wrote down the plate number. Then I took a few pictures. Nothing illegal, just enough to document the condition of the property, the license plate, the trash-strewn yard, the broken porch light. It looked abandoned. Or worse, like the house was starting to rot from the inside out. I drove home and pulled out the deed. Still in my name. No transfer. No co-signer. I was the sole owner. That was all I needed to proceed. The next morning, I made a list. 1. Consult the lawyer again. 2. File formal eviction paperwork. 3. Notify utilities and cancel all remaining accounts in my name. 4. Freeze any remaining automatic payments tied to the property. 5. Schedule a locksmith and a contractor for a full inspection post-eviction. But there was one thing I wasn't prepared for. The will. I hadn't thought about it in years. But as I pulled up old files from when I bought the house, I remembered something my lawyer had casually mentioned back then. If this property stays under your name, it won't pass to your mother automatically unless she's listed in a will or trust. Right now, she's a guest. Nothing more. I hadn't written a will back then. I was 30. Young. Invincible. But now I had reason to. Because the thought that my mother, or Kyle, might one day inherit the very house they'd trashed and abused, it made my skin crawl. So I called a different lawyer. A tougher one. This wasn't just about protection anymore. It was about setting up the board for checkmate. The eviction paperwork was straightforward. Because there had never been a lease or rental agreement, Kyle and Mom were legally considered licensees, basically long-term guests. And as the homeowner, I had the right to revoke that license at any time. Still, my lawyer warned me, it won't be smooth. They'll fight. They might claim you gifted it. They might argue you abandoned it. But as long as your name's on that deed, we hold the high ground. Good. I wanted the high ground. Next came the utilities. I shut off the water first. Then gas. Then electricity. Not immediately. It takes a few days, but I scheduled everything. And I made sure the notices would be mailed directly to the house. Let them see it in black and white. Let them feel the floors shift beneath them. Then, I contacted the bank that still held the insurance policy. Told them to suspend coverage due to property misuse. Then the contractors. I hired a team to do a full walkthrough and inspection after the eviction cleared, just in case there was damage I could file a claim for. And then, I got to work on the will. I named a charity as the sole beneficiary of the house, should anything happen to me. I set up a living trust to bypass probate. And I added a clause. No blood relative who has previously resided in this home shall have legal claim to its contents, equity, or future sale proceeds. That felt good. No, that felt right. 3 days later, I filed the eviction. The notice had to be served in person, so I hired a process server. And here's where things got theatrical, because Kyle didn't take it well. According to the server, Kyle answered the door in pajama pants and a gaming headset, saw the envelope, and yelled, "Seriously? From Dean." The guy just said, "I don't ask questions. I just deliver." Then Kyle tried to slam the door and throw the papers back, but the server had already documented the delivery. It was official. Clock started ticking. They had 30 days. 30 days to leave the house, or get physically removed by law enforcement. The text came an hour later. From my mom. "After everything I did for you." No explanation. No apology. Just those words. I didn't reply, but that night, I slept better than I had in months. Over the next week, I got bombarded. Blocked numbers. Voicemails from unknown callers. Facebook messages from distant cousins I hadn't heard from in years. All of them suddenly very interested in how cruel I was being to my poor, aging mother. I didn't respond to any of them, but I kept records. Screenshots. Voicemails. Everything. Because I wasn't playing defense anymore. I was preparing for the storm. And oh, it came. Just not how I expected. See, the moment Kyle and my mom realized I wasn't bluffing, something snapped. I don't know if it was pride, panic, or pure entitlement, but they didn't try to fight the eviction legally. They tried something else. Something reckless. It started with a broken window. Trish called again. said she saw a rock go through the living room glass late one night. Cops came, but no arrests. Then, 2 nights later, she called again. This time, it was louder. Yelling, screaming, sirens. And that was when she dropped the bombshell. Dean, they called the cops on you. Apparently, Kyle told the officers I was threatening them. Said I'd been harassing them. Said I was abusing an elderly woman. All lies. But loud ones. The officers didn't arrest anyone, but they documented it. Which meant I had to do the same. I called my lawyer. Filed a counterstatement. Submitted my own evidence. And then, I made the final call. I scheduled the locksmith. Not for that day, but for the day after the eviction clock ran out. The day they were supposed to be gone. And if they weren't, well, I'd already filed the motion for physical removal. Let the sheriffs handle it. Because I wasn't playing hero anymore. I was done being the good son. And if they thought they could bluff and scream their way out of this, they had no idea who they were dealing with. Because I hadn't just taken back control. I had the law, the keys, the house, and something more dangerous than any of that. A plan. The morning of the eviction, I stood across the street in my car, windows rolled up, coffee in hand, watching the house I once bought as a gift become the stage for a reckoning I never thought I'd have to deliver. 8:58 a.m. The sheriff's deputies rolled up right on time. They weren't in a rush. No sirens. Just 2 officers in 10 uniforms, 1 male, 1 female, both calm and unreadable, like they'd done this 100 times. Because they had. They weren't here to play therapist or referee. They were here to enforce the law. I followed behind as they walked up the driveway. Trash littered the yard. A black garbage bag slumped open near the porch steps, contents spilling out, empty chip bags, cigarette butts, and an old pizza box with flies buzzing around it. The place looked worse than a frat house. The male deputy knocked. Sheriff's Department. Open up. No answer. The female deputy looked at the clipboard, double-checked the address, then knocked again, firmer this time. Still nothing. Then, just as she reached for the radio, the door creaked open. And there stood Kyle. He looked like he hadn't slept. His hoodie was inside out, his eyes bloodshot. He blinked at them like he couldn't process what was happening. Behind him, I could hear my mother's voice echo from the hallway. Who is it? The female deputy raised her voice. We're here to enforce a court-ordered eviction. You've had 30 days. That deadline has passed. You need to leave the property immediately. Kyle's mouth opened, but no words came out. I stepped up behind them and said, You've got an hour. He looked over the deputy's shoulder and saw me. His expression twisted. This is low, Dean. Even for you. The male deputy stepped forward. Sir, you need to start gathering your belongings. You can bring what you can carry. If you leave anything behind, you'll need to make arrangements with the owner. Kyle's jaw clenched. We don't have anywhere to go. I stayed silent. Because that wasn't my problem anymore. An hour later, the front lawn looked like a yard sale gone wrong. 3 suitcases. A plastic tub of tangled cords and chargers. 2 garbage bags stuffed with clothes. 1 large flat-screen TV that Kyle clearly thought he could take with him, even though I'd bought it. He fought hardest over that TV. Come on, he pleaded. You don't even use it. I shook my head. You don't live here anymore. He muttered something under his breath, something that included the word ungrateful, but he didn't push further. Not with the deputies still there. Mom came out next, holding her purse like it weighed 100 pounds. She didn't look at me. Not once. She just stood on the porch, jaw tight, eyes red, waiting for someone to offer her sympathy. No one did. Finally, the female deputy handed me the clearance form. They're out. It's yours. I nodded. Thank you. They left, and I stood alone on the porch, key in hand. I didn't say anything to Mom or Kyle. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I simply turned and walked into my house. The smell hit me first. Rotten food. Dirty laundry. Something vaguely chemical, like spilled rubbing alcohol or dollar store cleaner. I held my breath and stepped deeper inside. The living room was trashed. Couch cushions stained. Coffee table covered in ash and soda cans. Someone had drawn on the wall in what looked like permanent marker. Bad sketches of video game characters, names, scribbles. The hallway carpet had cigarette burns. In the kitchen, the fridge was empty except for a half-eaten rotisserie chicken and a jar of pickles. There were pizza boxes stacked on the stove, like someone had been using them as plates. In my old bedroom, the one I gave to Mom, the walls were covered in sticky notes. Quotes. Bible verses. Rambling, Paranoid notes like, he's trying to take it all, and my son betrayed me. I closed the door and walked out. In the backyard, I found a rusted grill full of half-burnt foil trays, a stack of broken lawn chairs, and a pile of cigarette butts arranged in the shape of a smiley face. It was a circus, but it was my circus now. I spent the next 2 weeks gutting the place. I hired a crew to do a deep clean, repaint the walls, rip out the carpet, and replace the bathroom fixtures. I told them I wanted the whole place disinfected from top to bottom. I didn't care about the cost. And when they were done, it looked brand new. Fresh paint, polished floors, clean air. The house looked like it had been waiting all along to be rescued. And for the first time since I bought it, it felt like mine. I didn't sell it. Didn't rent it out either. I turned it into something better. A transitional home for foster kids aging out of the system. I partnered with a local nonprofit that specializes in helping 18-year-olds who age out of foster care but have nowhere to go. They needed short-term housing while the kids looked for jobs, apartments, schools. I donated the house to the program, but kept ownership under a foundation I created with my lawyer. That way, it could never be sold, never be claimed by family, never be touched by anyone except the organization I trusted. When the paperwork was signed, I stood on the porch one last time. And I smiled, because I finally did what I set out to do from the beginning. I helped someone who actually needed it. As for Mom and Kyle, they tried to sue. Well, she tried to sue. Filed a claim in small claims court saying I'd illegally evicted her and stolen the house. Claimed it was a verbal gift. Said I promised it to her in front of witnesses. Her witnesses were 2 cousins who hadn't even been at the cookout. The judge dismissed it in under 10 minutes. My lawyer didn't even have to speak. Kyle disappeared for a while after that. Trish told me he crashed on a friend's couch for a few weeks, then tried living out of his car. At some point, the car got repossessed. Mom moved in with her sister. They're not speaking anymore. Apparently, my aunt told her, you burned the only bridge that ever tried to hold you up. I don't know if that's true, but I like the sound of it. It's been 7 months now. The house is full. 3 young adults live there, 2 girls, 1 guy, each with jobs, goals, and their own room for the first time in years. The nonprofit checks in weekly. I stop by sometimes, quietly, just to make sure everything's still in place. None of the kids know who I am. They don't need to. This wasn't about recognition. This was about redemption. Not theirs. Mine. I lost my mother that day. Maybe I never really had her to begin with. But I found something else in the aftermath, something stronger. I found peace. I found purpose. And I found out that sometimes, the best revenge isn't taking back what was stolen. It's using what they tried to ruin. To build something better. I bought my mom a house, and in the end, I gave it to someone who knew how to live in it.